Kevin Boyles, Tom Hageland, Ruth Nelson,
Here.
Jana Shogren,
Here.
Sarah Spear,
Here.
4 of the 6 present.
Thank you. So that is a quorum, so we'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and as always, this meeting is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.02. It's being aired on YouTube Live and being recorded, and it'll be available on the school district website shortly. The maximum seating capacity, it looks like we're getting close, is 23, and there are some extra chairs out in the hallway. So we'll start with approving the agenda. It is amended. There are multiple changes to it, more recognitions, which is exciting, some changes in the order, and some miscellaneous other changes. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. So first from Director Spear, a second from Director Shogren. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And first up, we have some fun recognitions. And I would like to start with the first one. Our Superintendent Lane Larson was selected as a Minnesota Association of School Administrators Region 5 Administrator of Excellence. This award honors an administrator annually from each of the 9 Minnesota MASA school districts, or districts, not school districts, MASA districts. The nominee must have provided service to MASA through their active participation in this group, leadership, and demonstrated active involvement in educational and community affairs, plus being regarded as a role model by MASA colleagues is also very important. Lane is very well deserving of this award, and she will receive it at the March MASA conference. So congratulations, Lane, and let's give our superintendent a round of applause. And with that, I will turn it over for the rest of the recognitions to you.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you everyone for that kind applause. I feel very honored to have been selected from my colleagues because there are so many incredible superintendents out there. And so it really was an honor to be given this award through Region 5 at Sourcewell from the colleagues in MASA Region 5. And so I thank you very much for your kindness. Right. I also have well, it's not an award, but a recognition. And at this time, I would like to thank all of the board members, our Board of Education, and I'll start today with our chair, Ruth Nelson, our vice chair, Charles Blacklance, Jana Shogren and Sarah Spear, and also Tom Hageland and Kevin Boyles, because February 21st through the 25th of 2022 is Minnesota's School Board Recognition Week. I want to thank all of these dedicated volunteers, really, for making a difference in the lives of the children in our school and for making the decisions based on what you believe is best for the school district. I know from experience that there are many, many, many extra hours that a school board member puts in to being prepared for every board meeting that they come to, many hours above and beyond what we see at the board table. And so it is truly with my honor to give each of you, those of you who have the frame already, Sarah, maybe you would hold yours up so the audience could see. The board, the first time they get this recognition, gets a frame that they can put their award in to hang in their office or somewhere at home or in their office at work. And after that, every year, the Board of Education gets one of these wonderful recognitions to update in their frame. And so I would like everyone that's here to give this awesome Board of Education a round of applause for the incredible work that you do every day and the hard work that you do. You are going to get very tired of me tonight because there are so many recognitions. Our students and staff are just really doing great things right now. And so it is an honor tonight to be able to identify the other recognitions on our agenda. Thank you to all of our paraprofessionals who were recognized during Minnesota's Paraprofessional Week, January 24th through the 30th, 2022. We are grateful for their dedication and their efforts. Thank you for all you do. Along with that, I want to thank all of the school counselors. February 7th through 11th, 2022, Governor Walz proclaimed as School Counseling Week in the state of Minnesota. And we are extremely grateful for the work that these people do as well. And also, we want to recognize our district bus drivers. Governor Walz has proclaimed February 23rd, 2022 as Bus Driver Appreciation Day. And we are grateful for the dedication and the efforts to keep our children safe every day to and from school and the activities that they go to. Now, I'm kind of clumping all three together tonight because I know that over the past 20 months, or 24 months, I guess it's pretty close to, all of these people, our paraprofessionals, our school counselors, our bus drivers, along with the other staff in our school, have gone above and beyond and often done way more than what their job description is. And so it is really important tonight that we recognize all of these people and say thank you for a job very well done. And if we could give all of these people a round of applause as well, I would appreciate it. Also, congratulations to the Warrior Varsity cheerleaders for their first place finish in the co-ed non-tumbling division for Minnesota's Cheerleading Coaches Association state tournament, which was held on January 29th. Congratulations also to the varsity dance team, who finished first in kick and third place in jazz at the Section 4 AAA sections about a week ago, little over that. They will be going to the Minnesota State High School League State Tournament on February 18th and 19th at the Target Center in Minneapolis and competing on behalf of the Brainerd Warriors. And we wish them the best of luck. Jana, I know you're very nervous as she's got a senior dancing in it this year. So congratulations, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. Congratulations also to the Warrior Boys Alpine Ski Team for qualifying to go to the Minnesota State High School League State Tournament on February 16th at Giants Ridge in Biwabik, Minnesota. Congratulations to the Warriors girls alpine skiers, Lauren Kallenberg and Kalias Cheney, for qualifying for the Minnesota State High School League competition on February 16th at Giants Ridge. Congratulations also to our one-act play participants for finishing third in the Section 2A tournament, which was held February 3rd. Congratulations to the Warriors Boys Nordic Ski Team for finishing second place in Section 8A and for qualifying for the Minnesota State High School League State Tournament on February 16th and 17th at Giants Ridge in Biwabik, Minnesota. Congratulations to the Warriors Girls Nordic Ski Team for finishing first place in the Section 8 Single A and for qualifying for the Minnesota State High School League Tournament on February 16th and 17th at Giants Ridge. As you can tell, there's a lot of excitement going on this coming weekend for many of our athletes. Congratulations also to the Warrior Girls Gymnastics Team, who finished third place in the Section 8 AA, and congratulations to the individual state qualifiers, Brianna Deason on the vault and the beam, Josie Harguth on the beam, Megan Wirtz on the floor. The Minnesota State High School League Tournament is February 18th and 19th, 2022 at Roy Wilkins Auditorium. Congratulations also to the Warrior Boys Swim Team for being the Central Lakes Conference champions. They were just awarded that this weekend, and they'll be going on to sections very soon. Congratulations to the Warrior Girls Hockey Team for being the Central Lakes Conference champions as well. And congratulations to the Nordic Ski co-head coaches, Mary Claire Ryan and Chris Hansen, for being selected as Coaches of the Year for Section 8A. We have so many talented kids, and so congratulations and best wishes. Good luck in all of these tournaments. This is such a fun time of year. So that ends my report.
Thank you. Busy weekend. Good luck to all of you.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next up we have public input where I have some people here, and before we start that, you have 3 minutes. The first person I have is Amy Bogart from Baxter. She's a parent of an ISD 181 student and would like to talk.
I think the next one is my daughter, so.
Okay, and your daughter, she's gonna come up with you. Okay, great, thank you. Amy and Jenna.
Yep. So Jenna asked me to introduce her. I told her earlier that I was gonna be gone for a little while tonight, even though it was Valentine's Day, because I was gonna come here and talk to you guys about masks, and she said, well, can I make a list and tell them what I think? And I said, I mean, you can. I was a little surprised, but this is Jenna, and she has written out what she would like to say. You go ahead.
I think that we should not wear masks because me and some of my friends get infected by the mask. For example, how I get infected was I got bumps on my chin and nose. This is how my friend got infected because one of my friends, her throat got swollen and she couldn't eat. Happy Valentine's Day.
So, and now I've introduced myself, and so I'll take my time. I have more to say. I have 2 topics that I'd like to discuss, but I think they're correlated. In January, there was an audit that was presented to you guys, and it showed that 423 students had, that there was a decline in 423 students in the district. I've heard from my son who's at Forest View that there's a pod in 8th grade that's almost completely empty. So I was kind of curious because we'd been told in the fall that it was a little over 100 students, but that re-enrollments had made up for that, or a lot of that. So I'm kind of curious about where the information, how it was so inaccurate. But then the discussion went from there to marketing to boost enrollment, and I think it's kind of missing the point and maybe even a little insulting to families that left. They didn't pull their kids for no reason. We need to fix the issues that they left for, and I bet that they would come back without having to spend district time or resources on selling the district to them. This leads me to my second topic, masking. The mandate needs to end for all ages immediately. Masks are detrimental to our kids' health and development. I've seen it firsthand. The case for masks has always been to help protect others, but the reality is N95s they do protect the wearer. So if some families do need additional protection, they can wear N95s and the rest of the children do not have to. The other line that we always hear is that kids don't mind and that kids are resilient. But kids being resilient isn't a justification to do them harm. Jenna just said this, harm means to cause an adverse effect, and maybe not for everybody, but this is causing an adverse effect in speech and in infections, as Jenna puts it. I would argue that while we tell ourselves that their compliance is resilience, it might be their accommodation to us, and it's not their job to accommodate us. Take a look at the Super Bowl last night. The entire stadium was full of maskless adults, maskless celebrities, maskless athletes, maskless performers, maskless military. When we go into a store locally here, 95% of the people are maskless. There were even recent events here, not necessarily directly run by the district, but their sole purpose is to support the district, that were by all accounts that I heard maskless. I did notice, I went looking for photos after I heard this, and there are no photos anywhere. And in a district where we post about everything, I think it's really interesting that no photos from these events have been shared. But that's okay because it's not adults, right? It's the adults and not the kids, so they can be maskless. My family's been against the mask mandates for a long time, and we chose to acquiesce to the mandate to help placate the fear surrounding COVID. We understood it, but enough is enough. We need to vote to completely end it tonight. It will not be enough to eliminate the mandate for some students while still inflicting it on other students. I have heard a rumor that there's going to be a big proposal about masking, and I hope this is true. I was gonna stay and listen to your discussion, but the 7-year-old decided to tag along and it really wouldn't be cool to make her stay. So I'm gonna take off, but I'm really hoping and praying that we start moving in the right direction on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a good Valentine's Day.
Yes, you too.
Brittany Lynn, a parent of an ISD 181 student, to talk about the mask mandate.
Shocking. Yeah, my name is Brittany Lynn. I have a kindergartner that goes to Lowell. We just moved here in December from an unmasked district. And starting about 3.5, 4 weeks ago, my child has thrown a huge fit every single day because she does not want to go to school because of the mask. So I found out 2.5 weeks ago. She has cried every single morning. We've had to now bribe her to go to school because she can't breathe. She doesn't like it. It hurts. It hurts her ears. She can't see the teacher. Having taught kindergarten for 4 years and done daycare in a licensed daycare where I did my own kindergarten / preschool during the COVID, it's enough. You can't read my lips unless I talk loud enough. You don't know what I'm saying. And that's not okay. It's not okay to test. Expect these kids to know what we're trying to teach them and pass these tests. It's not gonna happen. We have went from preschool level and teaching them what they should have learned in preschool when they're 2, 3 years old. Now in kindergarten, they should know first grade level stuff. We're going backwards, people. We're gonna be teaching them preschool stuff now instead of what they should be learning in kindergarten. It's not okay. Because my child, from volunteering today, is wearing her mask down here. 90% of the kids are wearing masks I'm providing as a taxpayer. I'm not okay with my tax dollars providing masks to children who parents can't get a reusable mask. Or my kid sits on the dashboard till the next day, comes completely covered in drool every single day because she wears it like this because she can't breathe. She's 6. Until we moved here in December, my daughter had no concept of COVID. We never talked about it. She would ask, oh, well, why are people wearing masks at the store? Well, we just have to for right now. She had no concept until we moved here. Now it's COVID. We can't do this COVID. We can't do that COVID. Why does a 6-year-old need to know what COVID is? They don't. They're 6. Their concern should be, what did I say to make my friend's heart hurt? What is my teacher trying to teach me? Not, well, what's COVID? They shouldn't know that. There should be no concept in a 6-year-old brain of what COVID is. Especially when everybody's just forcing, you have to wear a mask because it's what's best. It's what's best. Prove it. Please show me. 100% proof from both sides that is actually effective. It's not. Let's see.
About 30 seconds.
Thank you. Like I said, having taught kindergarten, the main focus in kindergarten is phoneme recognition, letter sound recognition. If I go like this and go, what am I saying? You can't do that. This is what the teacher is doing all day. This should not be their job. Their job should be not this. A child's concern should not be, when's the teacher going to tell me to put my mask back up? Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Kern, ISD community member.
Got to say, phonics was a big thing in my life, and not to be able to see the lips is huge. I'm looking forward to the community forum that you guys are going to have on the equity committee. I'm looking forward to that being rescheduled. We just celebrated Martin Luther King Day back a month ago, and a few weeks back, and Martin Luther King always said that you judge a man, his dream was that we would judge a man by the content of his character, not the color of his skin. I am just so looking forward to this community forum on equity, because to me, the equity is nothing more than CRT and enshrining racism. And what it does is equity, it bases on color, race, gender, religion, that someone is more worthy or less worthy as far as getting any kind of, whatever the help is that you're looking forward to. To be basing somebody's need on those things, that criteria, is racism. And I'm so against equity. And I'm for equality. I love equality. I believe what Martin Luther King said, 1,000%. Equity is to me, it's CRT in disguise is what it is. So thank you, and I appreciate the comments on the mask. It was very good.
Thank you, Doug. Next up, Christychukish, another parent of an ISD student.
Hi, I'm Christychukish. I have 3 kids in the district, and I don't feel comfortable talking right now, but I'm doing it anyway. I wrote this on the way here because I didn't know about the meeting tonight until 30 minutes before it started. So I just wanted to talk with you guys about the mask mandate that you guys have in place. For those who believed so adamantly in these masks at one time or even now, here are some things to note. You can still choose to wear one or have your child wear one. Many kids and adults are not wearing them correctly. What changes once the school bell rings at the end of the day? I understand and respect everyone's personal opinions, and I know that every single person in this room loves their children and maybe all of the children in our district. Sorry. I know the board has been placed in a very difficult situation over the last couple of years, and they are fellow community members, business owners, and parents and friends. And because of their position, they are scrutinized away from these meetings while they are out enjoying life with their family and friends. And while that doesn't seem fair, it's what happens. So I'm here to beg the board to really ask yourselves, do you still honestly believe in these masks? Do you believe that they are making a difference wearing them incorrectly or only during school hours to our district's positive case numbers? And if you have a school-age child, do you want he or she to still be wearing them? It's okay to step away from what we once believed and to be true and right and realize that it may no longer be the answer. I'm asking you tonight to please stop the district's mandate immediately for all students and staff. Thank you.
And I think that's all we have. So, okay, thank you, everyone. And we'll go on now to our approval of our minutes. First, we have the September 24th special board meeting.
I move to approve the special board meeting minutes for January 24th.
A second. That was Jana. Okay. We have a first from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Sjogren. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we have the regular school board meeting from January 24th. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a first from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Blacklands. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And finally, we have the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Small group here today. We have a first from Director Spear, a second from Director Blacklands. Any discussion? I would like to just say, give a big shout out. We don't go through all the grants, but the Brainerd Sports Booster, what an amazing organization. They gave money for our weight room, and then they gave money for equipment for the Nordic ski, cheerleaders, and hockey. So thank you, Brainerd Sports Boosters.
Here, here.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next up, we will meet with School Exec Connect. Bob Osland is here tonight, and he will give us a report on the survey, the interviews, and the focus groups. And I think that you have papers at your desk.
Well, Madam Chair, Superintendent Larson, members of the board, it's very nice to be here with you this evening to summarize for you the input we received with the, I think it was 12 focus groups that we did, and along with several individual interviews, including each of you as board members. And also the results of a survey that we had available to anyone who cared enough about the process to fill it out. And so, and then present the profile that we're recommending, that comes out of all that information. I know you've received these documents and you've had a chance to review them, I'm sure. And just to touch on the highlights a little bit on the focus group, one of the things that we always look for, in addition to the actual input itself, is how consistent is the input from group to group. And in your case, it was very, very consistent. There's a lot of alignment, which is always a good thing, we think, because it's one thing to see, even if there are issues that that need to be dealt with, at least people see them the same way. And that's important, and a much better place to start from. But there's a lot of strength and so on that people highlight. The first question we asked each group was, what are the strengths in the district that really are helpful to continually improving and moving forward? The first thing the thing that came up with the most frequency by essentially everyone was the quality of the staff. Just great staff, committed, very professional, very passionate about what they do. The number of offerings for students, both academically and activity. There's a wonderful array of opportunities for students in the district, and everyone, essentially, I think with every group, and essentially every individual pointed that out. The facilities, you've got great facilities, upgrades, recent upgrades make them particularly wonderful, and everyone agrees that that's a great strength. The support from the community is also noted as a strength from essentially every group. That's indicated in a lot of ways, including the support for the bond issue that created all the, gave the opportunity for all the facility upgrades. Your use of instructional technology also was mentioned a lot as a strength. And it's obviously excellent and seen as really advantageous with what has had to be done in the last couple of years with COVID through technology at times. So it really gave you a leg up on that. And finally, the district's location. This is a wonderful part of the state, and it's beautiful, lakes and so on. Lots of things to do, lots of things to take advantage of. Not that far from the Twin Cities, so that those things can be taken advantage of as well. So that came up in a lot of the groups. So those are the summary of the strengths. On the other side of the coin, the challenges that came up frequently with essentially all the groups. The first one that came up the most often was finances, just the lack of, and the fact that right now, because of COVID, ironically, that's helped some in terms of the finances because of the aid that's come through for the funds to deal with that. But once those are exhausted, once that time frame is over, the fact that you don't have an operating levy in place, which the last time I looked at the figures, about 90-some% of districts and state do have that in place to add to the funds that come through the state formula. So it's, that's an issue for you without a doubt. The loss of students to open enrollment, and I know that's something that is relatively new too, and the whole COVID situation probably has contributed to. You have historically been a district that gained students through open enrollment and now are losing some. So that is seen as a challenge and an opportunity as well, obviously. The politically polarized environment also is a challenge, a pretty obvious one in the world today. And the whole, obviously the COVID situation is a big part of that. Staff hiring and retention. It's difficult to hire staff, many types of staff right now, as we all know, and retain them, and that's another challenge that came up. Addressing issues of diversity and equity came up in at least 3 or 4 of the groups and some of the individual interviews, often from the context of it's more difficult to address issues and give experiences to students that help prepare them for life outside of Brainerd when you do not have a lot of diversity. And that's obviously very true. It creates a special challenge when that's the case. The mental health needs of students, particularly at this time, and every search we do, that comes up so often now. It just comes up all the time. So it's certainly not unique to Brainerd, but it's certainly a challenge and a need. And staff morale. Staff morale is not real high. And again, that's, I think, unfortunately fairly normal at this given time, no matter where you are. It's been tough. It's been really tough. So those are the challenges that were most frequently mentioned. As far as goals over the next 3 years to items the district should focus on, the financial issues, addressing those financial issues, particularly once the COVID funds are no longer available. The need for an operating levy came up often from groups and individuals. And to try and reverse the loss of student enrollment through marking the district, making sure that people are aware of the things that happen here and all the opportunities for students and so on, and to implement a plan that would be that marketing and engagement plan, if you will. A goal to hire and retain quality staff. Another goal was to enhance social emotional supports for students, improving staff morale. So most of the goals, fall out of the challenges, which makes a lot of sense. To develop a new comprehensive strategic plan, the need to do that. It's from a timing standpoint for lots of reasons, including the old plan kind of being at the final stage. So that makes a lot of sense too for a goal. And to build back, increase the level of community trust that is not seen to be as high as it once was. And finally, what would people like to see in your next superintendent? What stands out? And here there's a lot of correlation as well between groups. An excellent communicator, someone who be the face and voice of the district, and in every way essentially. Someone who is very visible in both the schools and the community. That goes along with that in many ways. Open and transparent. A collaborative bridge builder, a uniter who hopefully can, as we come out of this time period we've been in, to pull people, be one asset to pull people together more than they are now. A strong business sense, thorough understanding of school finance. A school district isn't a business, but there are certainly many aspects of a school district that need to be run using good business practices and principles. So that's important. And that came up a lot. The ability to make tough decisions and, explain the background behind or why the decision was made. And somebody willing to, a visionary willing to implement change. Someone with a thick skin. You've got to be courageous at times. There's no question about it, because people are going to be upset. It's just a given. A passionate, committed leader. I think a comment came up, someone who bleeds blue, came up a few times, which was easy to understand. someone who puts students first in the decision-making process. Personal attributes like, approachable, warm, personable. And also often, several mentioned experience in a district that's large and complex and similar to your district in many ways. So those were the highlights from the focus groups. And you've got the 30-page document that gives you all the highlights and how often different things came up and so on. So any questions on that?
I have a couple questions or thoughts. Not sure if now is the time to
Sure.
ask or comment.
Whenever you like.
I appreciate the efforts that your group put in, and definitely the efforts that Janet has put in terms of bringing the groups together as well. I think she did a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
And one of the questions I have, one of two, is the breakdown for the student population. And this may be more of a Janet question, although Janet and I did process a little bit about this, is I would like to see more students a part of this process. I'm not sure if all students were involved. My understanding was it was student council on high school and the junior high or middle school. I don't think that all students, in fact, I know not all students were asked the way it sounds. I prefer that all students are asked. It's a concern of mine that there might not be enough underrepresented students represented in that student group. And I understand how it works. We had a small window, and we need to work with some people that can be there. I get that. But we also want to make sure that we're not putting up barriers to these students accessing this type of opportunity for them. One being if students aren't necessarily even being asked to be a part of this group, but my understanding they were, if they're part of the student body. And that's something we can follow through outside of this meeting. And then also...
maybe I could just make a quick comment on that, Charles. It's my understanding that both at the high school and middle school, they were, if not solely for the most part, student council, which some districts do. There are many ways you can go about it. I certainly agree that the better cross-section, the better. But one thing we did do, I know I facilitated the high school group, and then I think I took notes on the middle school, but we did the same thing in both of them. We encouraged the students to talk to their fellow students about this process and go to the website and fill out the survey so that they could have input that way. Obviously, just to be manageable, a group of 15 or 20 or so is usually, where you would end up. But we always hope more students take advantage of the survey as well, because it's the same questions that you can, provide input to and have an open-ended comment on each of those. And not a lot of them did, unfortunately, but then we'll talk about that as soon as we get into the survey. But I just wanted to mention that.
Sure. So then with that in mind, as we move forward to the interviews, I would just like to ensure that a larger population of student is accessed or maybe a more appropriate cross.
Well, yes, I mean, the only thing the student group in the interview process, obviously, you don't want it so large that everyone can ask a question, so, but to get a good cross-section with that, and then also with the students, while you're not going to be able to have all the students involved in an interview group, any student that feels that really wants to be involved in the process, if they're not involved in that group, there will be an open community interview session, probably at 5 o'clock. Typically it's at 5 o'clock. And students are welcome to come to that too. And they can ask questions just like their parents or a community member in that session, just like anybody else. So there will be an opportunity, not only for every student, but for every member of the district that would like to be involved, which is as it should be.
Right, and I appreciate the opportunity for all students to be involved. I think that's great. But if there's an opportunity to be handpicked, I just want to make sure that all students have access to that opportunity to be handpicked. With another question that I had was with the parent group, the PTO, the District Advisory Council, and then the underrepresented parent group as well. They're placed into one group for the focus group. Is that my understanding?
There were, I think, 2 groups.
Were there 2 groups?
There were 2 groups.
My concern.
One, to give people the opportunity to, I think one was at noon and one was late afternoon in order to allow people's schedule to increase the opportunity for them to be involved.
The intention of my advocacy for an underrepresented group was to make sure that these voices aren't drowned out by a larger voice or by a voice that might be more comfortable. Not everybody is comfortable to speak up like myself, and we want to make sure, in my mind, that we give everybody that opportunity to be heard. And even if we need to make sure that they might have a little bit more time, per se, to speak up. You know, speaking culturally or even family-wise in terms of how these individuals choose to speak up. Not everybody's able to jump up and raise their hand. That's not necessarily a first foot they step with. You know that, I'm sure.
Oh, I do, and you know, and I that thought crossed my mind too, Charles, to be real honest with you, because it was not just solely, would there be a reluctance or hesitancy to speak up. One thing that I can tell you though, and because I don't remember if I facilitated both of them, but I was present, if you will, in both those groups, and everyone spoke up. Every participant, you know, we had, you know, how it is with a Zoom meeting and all the different people on the screen. I think I think I'm accurate in saying that everybody who participated in both those groups asked more than one question, or gave more, no, I shouldn't say asked a question, gave more than one response to the questions. And so that was good,
Right.
Good to see.
Thank you. And then the final thought that I have or hope is that the underrepresented group would have that opportunity during the interview process to be able to have access to the candidates as well. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's a concern of mine that these individuals' voices might be drowned out by others that might be more comfortable with this particular process.
Yeah, and you know, we work with you and the district as, you know the district much more than we do. We have a much better sense of the district now, which is one of the reasons the focus groups are so helpful to this process. So we can do a better job of representing the district and talking to potential candidates and so on. But we'll go with whatever groups you feel are critical to have involved within the confines of logistical restrictions, right?
All right.
Okay.
And then finally, there's 2 individuals for the support staff, I think it was, that were part of this.
There were 2 who, there were supposedly 5, as I recall, who had said they were going to be part of the group, but only 2 signed on. So,
Right.
again,
And my issue isn't with Janet, because I think Janet did a wonderful job, but I don't know if there needs to be maybe different guidance in terms of, and I understand we're under a time restraint, but this is again where accessibility and barriers come in, and that's a population I want to make sure have that opportunity to be at the table, even for a moment, to be heard. And for 2 to show up, that's a bit of a concern for me. And I'm just throwing it out there just to see moving forward if we can make sure that whatever can be done to ensure that they have a voice through this process as well.
I think voice is critically important, and typically, in the interview process, one of the interview groups is a group made up of 2 or 3 members of each of what would be considered support staff groups. And so, absolutely.
Right, because if 2 people show up, then I wonder if we need to somehow be more agile to fit into their work schedules. But that's probably digging a little bit deeper than I need to go. But I appreciate you hearing me out.
We have some time before those interviews, so we can look at the groups and try to make it easier for some to get there. And so we should do that between then and now.
Would be a good start to ask those who signed up but weren't able to attend what the barrier was to attending.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at the survey. You've got the summary. It's like a 3-page summary. I did give Janet, when I arrived today, it's 30, 40 pages long, whatever it is, a document that includes every comment and every bit of input from the online survey. So she'll make hard copies and get you those so you can take a look at all the comments, all the questions that are suggested to ask, candidates and so on. But this is just a summary of what emerged as the top responses from people. There were 409 individuals who took the opportunity to participate. That's a good number. It's, I think it shows a nice amount of interest, and so that's great. That's great. Now, obviously, as it says in the middle of that first paragraph, this is not a scientific sample. This is just whoever decided to do it. And so these numbers that you get, or the responses, are not necessarily indicative of what the overall public feels. They're indicative of what the people who decided to participate feel. So very, very important to make that distinction. People could fill this survey out 1 time per email address. So not that, I don't know why somebody wants you, but you couldn't go in from the same email address and, do it multiple times and try to skew things in the direction you'd want to see them go. So the first question is simply for people to say what hat do they wear, or what hats do they wear, and you see how what turned out there. And parents parent of current students or have had a student in school in the past 5 years, 68%, or a little over 2/3 of the respondents, 279 out of the 409, are recent or current parents. That's high. That's real high. That's a lot of interest on the part of parents. And the second leading one is community member, and usually with 22%. And I'll tell you that oftentimes teachers or licensed staff will come in one of the first 2 spots, and so there's a lot of interest in your community, from parents and from the other members of the community. And then at 19%, from the teaching staff, 77 individuals. Support staff were 47, so that's going back, Charles, to your thoughts about input from support staff. That's a good number from support staff, so that's nice to see. Other, and don't ask me what other might be, because I really don't know. 25 individuals. Maybe they're not even district residents. I have no idea. And then students, like I said, it's kind of low. That's not necessarily unusual. You can see sometimes it kind of gets going amongst the students, but that didn't happen in your case. And then 9 administrators, 2% of the total. If you add all those up, they come out to over 100%, because you were to check, if 2 of them fit, you put both those down and so on. As with the focus group feedback, for the most part, the responses were fairly aligned. There's one exception, and I'll touch on it in a minute, but When you get to the actual input, things that were listed as the greatest strengths of the district, they all align really well with the focus groups, very consistent with the focus groups. Teacher quality, dedicated, highly competent staff, facilities, athletic and activity programs for students, community pride in the schools, supportive community, supportive of all parents. All those things are right in line with what came out of the focus group. So that's nice to see. The challenges were the only place where there was a fairly significant difference, I think, between the input we received from the focus groups and the input we received from the survey. And again, keep in mind that about 80% of the respondents, close or 75% probably, were from the community. The board governance one, you know, I got to tell you, in this age of COVID, that's just a, you know, this whole COVID thing has been kind of a no-win situation, as you well know, and so I think that just, that comes with the territory, and when you see the comments and so on, it's clear that that's, you know, a huge part of that. Understanding and supporting diversity in the district. That actually came up higher as a challenge in the survey than it did in the focus groups. You know, the focus groups came up, certainly, but not to the level, I would say, as it did with the survey, which is interesting. Administrators and principals, some of the same issues that we talked about with the first one. Communication, people see, you know, a need for enhanced communication, concerns about class size, not at all unusual, and certainly not when you are struggling with the budget. Achievement gaps between student groups, again, not surprising. Strong community support for schools and supportive community. It's interesting because it's seen as both depending on the person, it seems both a strength and a challenge. So that's interesting. As far as goals, assuring student well-being, emotionally safe and confident, #1 response. Improving staff morale, another high goal. The one that came out #2 at 32%. Build stronger connections with the community, within the district and with the community, again, over 30%. Maintain programs for all student achievement levels, 21%. Improving communications, also 21%. Focus on a 21st century curriculum of communication, collaboration, and creativity, and so on. Critical thinking, 17. Strengthening the academic program and curriculum, also 17. And understanding and supported diversity at 16. I should have mentioned earlier that usually kind of, when we summarize this, typically it's with 1 out of 5 or 6 people thought they were forced to pick 3 things out of a pretty extensive list. So when 1 out of 5 or 6 pick it, that's fairly high on the level, but it's still only you know, 1 out of 5 or 6 when it's 16%. So you know, that's another important thing to keep in mind too. And finally, what do people on the survey, what do people come up with in terms of what they would like to see from your next superintendent? And again, very good alignment with what came out of the focus groups. Someone who builds a great team and brings the best out of others, you know, a huge aspect of leadership, obviously. 1/3 of the respondents selected that one. A deep understanding of curriculum instruction, how students learn, that instructional leader aspect, 27. Child-centered, 26. Warm people skills, approachable, easy to talk to, 22, along with excellent communication skills. Strong decision maker who uses data and good information to support those decisions, 21. collaborative consensus builder, who can work with all constituencies, 21, holds others accountable, as any good leader has to do, 20%, is visible in schools, community, 19, open and flexible. And then finally, successful experience addressing the needs of racially diverse students, educational disparities, and issues of equity. Made that summary top list as well. So pretty darn good alignment between both the focus groups and the survey. So, okay. And then you have the final document is the one that we recommend in terms of the profile of what this next superintendent should bring in terms of their abilities, attributes, experience, and so on to meet the needs of the district at this point in time. Now, these items, when we put these together, how's the best way to put this? We kind of rank them. And I say kind of because, don't get hung up whether it's one or two or what, but we do kind of, from a top emphasis, they're all important. They're all need to be part of the, what the person brings and can support. But the ones at the top really speak to the things that jump out for what you need right now, in our opinion. So I just wanted to give a sense of that. And then that first one, like we heard from everyone, essentially, a visible and active leader in the schools and community, approachable, develop strong connections with all the different constituent groups, all targeted at, building support for the district and opportunities for kids. The second bullet there, excellent communicator and spokesperson for the district. Through, speaking, writing, listening, obviously. And using technology to market the district and enhance support. And also, the internal communication as well. A supportive team builder who develops positive relationships through high integrity and excellent interpersonal skills, creates an environment where trust is high and safe for the expression of ideas and opinions, brings out the best in others, and makes people feel valued and empowered. Someone who has a successful track record as a superintendent or an assistant superintendent and demonstrates strong management skills and a deep understanding of school finance, solid and transparent stewardship of taxpayer dollars, and it certainly would be a plus if they had experience with voter-approved bond or operating levies, as part of putting together a long-term vision of financial stability. A district the size of your district, it's going to attract applicants who are currently superintendents or assistant superintendents. It's hard to envision, not that it would be out of the question, but I think for somebody to make a move like from the principal's position to your superintendency, it's too big a jump. And so that's where we see, someone who is currently a superintendent or an assistant superintendent or executive director of that kind of that second level position makes the most sense for you. Collaborative, open-minded consensus builder who can lead, the review of the district's strategic plan or creating a, updated strategic plan. Someone who had experience with that would be a plus. And gets input from all the groups that, should be involved in a process like that, including you as a board, staff, students, and community. And that's all part of building trust and respect again. Being an instructional leader is always important for a superintendent. You know, you've got to come out of a strong instructional background, but different situations dictate how critical it is for that to be held within that person in terms of what they worry about day to day, if you will. And it's still important. It's always going to be important, but it's you know, that instructional leadership is not at the top of the list, which interestingly enough is where it was 6 years ago. I went back and looked, just I was interested, and it was literally at the top of the list. So, and it's very important, but we don't see it as the critical thing right now because of all the things that complement, you know, the superintendent in your district right now. Someone who motivates others, sets high expectations, makes difficult decisions, delegates authority, excellent follow through, and holds others accountable. That's critical. Demonstrates a commitment to addressing diverse needs of students who struggle with academic and socioeconomic or mental health challenges and interventions to help meet those needs. The next bullet, I really have to apologize. I was doing a little cutting and pasting when I put this together, and then had my colleagues, you know, and I talked about it. And I'm really upset with myself because when I did it, I looked at it and I thought, I got to get that part out there about the equity audit, and then I forgot. So you're not doing an equity audit. A search we did a while back, they were doing an equity audit, and so I had it in there. So I apologize. You now have a new copy, I believe, that doesn't have that in there. And so it's someone who certainly understands, you know, and values that, you know, economic and cultural and ethnic diversity in an educational environment and what it does for students as they move on and move out of the community and so on. Culturally competent and engage staff in community programs and initiatives that improve the learning experience and achievement for all learners. And we just, you know, getting that equity audit part out of it. But so put students first in making decisions, something, you know, that came up and well, as it well should. Develop a positive working relationship with you, with the school board. It's critical to a well-run district. You know, high-functioning districts always have great relationships between the superintendent and the board, with excellent communication between the parties, clear understanding of respective administrative and governance roles. It's just, it's critically important. Supports utilization of technology to enhance instruction. You're doing a great job of that. So it's somebody who comes in and just shares that focus and always looking to improve wherever possible. Someone who values and supports strong student athletic and academic co-curricular programs, fine arts programs. You know, we think always important for any superintendent anywhere. It's really important here because you have great activities for kids. And you know, as some of you know, I was assistant principal at the high school 40-some years ago, and I can still remember so vividly when I got here, just being just so impressed with the student activities. You know, the athletics and so on are always you know, excellent and so on. At the clubs and whatever, but you know, the music, the vocal and instrumental music, the drama programs, they were incredible, and I know still are really, really, really strong. So someone who comes in and really values that, shows that value by their presence, and so on, we think it's going to be very important to you. And finally, someone who's politically astute and, especially a district that's a regional center and like Brainerd, to create those connections through your local legislators and any way possible to have an impact and to help advocate for your districts. So that's the profile that we recommend. Obviously, a person who has all these traits to the highest degree doesn't exist, but it's you've got to be, we think, you can't have any area here where you're not functional, if you will. I'm looking for the right word, but you have to be able to handle all these things at the higher level, the better. So that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Could I,
Yes.
just a small detail or a detail? This looks good. I did look at it earlier, but just one thing I wanted to inquire about is one of the bullet you mentioned demonstrates a commitment to addressing the diverse needs of students struggling with academic, socioeconomic, and mental health challenges. I like that. That's definitely an area that I feel is very important to our school district and to students' well-being, and it also impacts all students within our school district. Either if somebody is walking through it or a friend is walking through it. With that being said, the bullet below it, you currently have understands the value of economic, ethnic, cultural, and all diversity in an educational environment. What I would challenge us, or I guess your group, is to consider the demonstrates a commitment instead of simply a theoretical understanding. We need a person, in my opinion, that is be able to actively demonstrate their commitment to this area. Not just somebody that can talk about it, but that can point to what they have done.
I certainly agree with you, Charles, and in fact, when we get to the interview stage, I'm assuming you will want to ask at least one or two questions in this area of each of the candidates, and when we try to be helpful in developing questions, we always want them to not only talk about philosophically where they're at, but to talk about what have you done, give an example, so that you can see that demonstration as well. And you certainly could add an adjective or two here to make that part of the.
But I do think when you read the rest of it, it says an active commitment to equity. So that's kind of like you understand the value and then you have an active commitment.
Yeah, no.
So.
Right, but no, there's certainly no argument at all with.
But I'm okay with you adding another word, but the active commitment, to me, in the second part of that sentence, kind of.
Right. Further on back, it's active. For me, it's important that it's front and center. They need to demonstrate it. Not understanding. I don't want some book knowledge. I don't want somebody that's been to a few good trainings. That's awesome. Okay. But it's important that we have somebody that's been in this fight before.
Okay, so maybe just moving that up, develop an active, or have an active commitment to equity and engagement, and then because of the understanding.
Right?
Yep.
You're looking for evidence that they've
absolutely
led this charge.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think if you move the active commitment up front.
Make that the starting, an active commitment to equity, and then
I like
go
that
from there.
active commitment.
Yeah, okay. We'll make that change, and I'll get it to Janet first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And I was kind of interested, the question I had, the visionary instructional leader, to me, that would be further up still. Mm-hmm. Because it's always the challenge to get those best programming.
It's definitely, got to be there, you've got to have that background and expertise. Put it wherever you want it.
Yeah, I would like it on the front page.
Okay. Maybe as the fourth one?
Yeah, it's the fourth one.
Okay, that sounds good.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. So I think we need a motion to approve this. To approve the adoption of the new superintendent of schools profile with those couple of edits.
I'll move to approve adopt this with the edits as stated.
Thank you.
A second.
Okay, first from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Spear. Any further discussion? Thank you for doing all this work, and it's good information to have, and interesting to see the differences and the similarities between the different groups, so thank you. And next up, we need to talk about the schedule, right?
I'm sorry.
The schedule, next up, the schedule, so.
And one final thing on the, just now that you've approved the profile, we think it's probably a good idea to put it on your website as a part under the search so the public can see this is what we're looking for in the superintendent.
Okay.
You can do that with a summary of the survey and so on if you want. It's up to you, but the profile in particular, I think is good to have.
Okay. Yeah, we can, and then you'll have it on your site and where they link, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next we have, we've talked about these special school board meetings. So the first interviews. Did you vote? Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I had already checked it.
Okay, now we need to approve these special board meetings. So this is for the first one is for the first interviews. And we have 3 of them set up. So they probably be each for two candidates. And so we have April 4th. I think we've talked about all these before. Is everyone okay with them still? And your group is still okay with them?
You know, it's fine. You know, I wasn't able to attend the planning meeting.
Okay.
At COVID. As I don't know if Patty mentioned that or not, but I did, along with my wife. But I guess I wasn't aware that we, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Forget what I just said. So the 4th would be for the presentation of the candidates.
Oh, that's
And the
right.
interviews on the 5th and 6th.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. To be 3 each night. Potentially, yeah. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve those dates.
Second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Sjogren. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then our special board meetings for the second interviews for a new superintendent of schools are the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Says time to be determined. And that's based on that schedule that we're gonna put up.
That's based on the schedule. It'll likely be 7:30, depending on what you decide to do for dinner.
Okay.
And just for informational purposes, typically that community meeting is at 5 o'clock, and we like to see all the board members if possible attend that community meeting just as observers, because it gives you a good sense of the candidate and how they interact and so on. So your day would probably be at 5 o'clock, but that meeting, 7:30, yeah.
Okay. And the one thing I had mentioned is it would be really nice if at least that student portion, when they interview with students, could be away from Westby. I'd like the candidates to have a chance to see the high school. And it's not that far. So, and if we do middle school students, I don't know if we could have them, I don't know, how did we do that last year?
We did it in room 200.
We bust them here.
Bus them, so we could just bus them to the high school instead.
And we
And
did.
that would be a nice break for the superintendent to get out and see another school. So if we can incorporate at least that in the schedule. And then we talked about also a tour at some point. Okay. So those are the changes we need to make. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve these dates?
I'll move to approve these dates
I'll
as
second.
listed.
First from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Schroeder. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you
we'll
very
be
much.
talking.
If anything comes up we think we should be aware of, be sure to get a hold of us, and it'll be kind of quiet for you now in the next, through March, but we'll be hard at work recruiting and vetting candidates, and so if you hear anything we think we should be aware of, why we'd appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you.
Thank you, drive safe.
That's for the 8th.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next up we have the COVID presentation. Okay, yeah, sure, why don't you mention that? That'd be great.
Public comment.
Okay. You do that first.
No, I just wanted to bring a presentation.
So we have Heidi Hahn and Angie Bennett joining us. Talk about the COVID plan.
Good evening. As we shift gears a little bit from our last presentation, we have some interesting data to share with you. So our overview for tonight's presentation is to again review the proposed phase plan that we discussed at the last board meeting in January about when to move from required face coverings to strongly recommending face coverings. We'll give you an overview of our current district data. We have the county data as well that's embedded in this. We need to remember that our county data is always about 2 weeks behind, and now it'll be 3 weeks behind ours as we present. We have an update for you from Reichert's Transportation, and then we have a new face covering recommendation update, and also then we can review some additional testing options and face covering options that we have for our staff and students. So at our last board meeting in January, we discussed about how to start rolling back, and we really based those decisions on the mitigation factors that are available to our students and our staff, things that we've talked about that have changed over time. So the availability for rapid testing, we've secured more rapid tests for our students and staff, and they're here again. We have community testing that's happening weekly. We also have screening testing that can happen for staff who choose to be screened. In addition, we now have vaccinations that are available, that have been available for our students ages 5 and up for those families who choose. But that's how we base kind of looking at those phases, is based on the mitigation strategies that have been available to our families. We talked about when to make those decisions, and we really looked and we wanted to focus on declining data. So when we started to see our data trends decline, that's when we could start discussing about making the shift. We looked at 50 as being a strong number, just knowing that that's a number that's identified for high transmission, and we switched away from looking at those county numbers per 10,000 to really looking at the number of positive cases that exist within our school district. So here's the good news for us. So if you look at the nice box that's highlighted there in yellow, since January, we've seen significant decline happening. So we saw that significant spike from the new variant that happened after the holiday break, and just has been expected, and what we've been told is we would see that decline happen rapidly, just like we saw the uptick. So that's the good news. I can tell you that this is the first Sunday in the last 24 months, outside of summer when we didn't have students, that I didn't spend hours and hours responding to parent emails and staff emails about COVID. As a matter of fact, it was less than an hour. So I can tell you right now at our high school, we have 4 positive cases, and at our middle school, we have 2 positive cases. We haven't had that numbers that low probably since the beginning of the pandemic. So that's very good news to hear that that has happened in our area. This is our data that we can tell you. So this is the positive. So when you saw that last downward trend, that was 65 cases that were positive between students and staff in the last week, and 114. That's a significant change when you look previously, and you can look in our archive data, we had numbers that were over 200. So that decline is happening, and like they said, it would happen rapidly. And that's exactly what we've seen. Here's that county data. Again, if you want to look, that ends on the 29th. So here we are 2 weeks later. So that data is 2 weeks behind ours, and those are those cases per 10,000. We did see the uptick with our younger student population, 0 to 18, but they too are reporting those cases going down. Reichert, here's the great news about Reichert. I think our families are tired of hearing that buses have been canceled, and I give praise to Reichert's for the early mornings and to our transportation department. They've tried to rotate, so thank you to all of our families. I feel like they've all taken a week where they knew they weren't going to have transportation. But Reichert's report, they currently have 4 drivers out with medical, but they've had 4 drivers return from medical. They have 2 new drivers in training, and then the best part is we now have an exam station open again here in Brainerd, Minnesota, which is making a huge difference. So that's a huge shout out to Reichert's and the advocating that they've done to make sure that's happening. We've seen patterns for the last several months where we've been short 1 to 4 routes each day. Lately, it's just been 1 route. This week is going to be challenging. So when you heard all the things we're celebrating with Nordic skiing and alpine skiing and our dance teams, that means they're going to far off places that require overnight trips. So we have lots of exciting things happen, but that also puts a stretch. So I talked to LC before coming in this meeting, and they're doing everything we can to make sure we have all of those heavy needs covered. Looks like we're going to get through. So once we can get through this week, we hope to almost have a sense of normal. But that's super exciting because our kids are getting to do some amazing things and are representing our schools across the state very well. But that's going to put a stress on our activities this week. And then just a reminder too, the face covering requirement still from the federal levels that we have to have face coverings on our buses through March 18th. We have not heard any changes or any update to that. This is tied to the federal transportation guidelines. So when you think about airlines, pieces like that, that's why we still have that March 18th. So, but Rikers is doing nice. And if you see Norby, he's still driven quite a few bus routes. So thank Norby. I usually wave at him as he goes in front of Washington. So. New recommendations to look at. Like we've said, we've seen a significant decline in our cases. We've talked about the mitigation strategies that we have available. One of the things we've talked about is for those face coverings is having access. We now have KN95 masks that are with our nurses. So when we have students or staff who are requesting different masks, we do have the KN95 available to them, and they can request those. We have more are coming. And like I also discussed, we have another whole round of rapid test. Difference that our family needs to be prepared for is that there's a change in how those are read, which we'll get to. But we'd like to recommend that phase 2 and phase 3 be looked at. Like I said, when you're looking at what's been happening in our middle school and our high schools and a low number of cases, that we move from requiring face coverings to strongly recommending, so giving that choice back to our families and staff. And then watching that data, we expect it to be a continued downward trend. So then in another week, we could look at the 5-8 grade levels, following the mitigation plans that we had outlined, and then another week looking at our early childhood through 4th grade. Again, this is going to be dependent on that downward trend in positive cases, but that's what we've been seeing, and it's been a significant decline. We talked about trying to see 3 weeks where it stayed under 50, but the question became, when we're seeing them this low, is it really necessary then to see that trend maintain? As well as knowing the mitigation strategies we have in effect.
Well, you do have a trend line going down.
We have 3 weeks of downward trend and significant downward trend. So it almost seems as fast as it went up after the holiday break, we've seen it come just as fast. And like I said, I've never had a more quiet Sunday than I've had in the last 24 months, this past Sunday. So hopefully you notice how perky and I don't have dark eyes, dark circles under my eyes. But no, it's good news, and it's following the trend that we're hearing across the state as well.
So one question I have for you. So this phase 2 and phase 3, according to this, would start tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so what about communication to families? That would be...
We could work on a Skylar to message that can go out.
Okay.
So that's something where it's emails that go out to families right away. We can also communicate with our administrators. They know that this has been in discussion. I think the one thing we didn't anticipate, so I'm very grateful to Director Spear and Director Boyles. They sat with us as we tried to figure out how do you start to phase back and look at different plans. We knew it was going to come down. I don't think we knew it was going to come down this quickly. And so when you look at weekends, typically have been our busiest time, and then Mondays are our busiest time with nurses. And it's not been the case as we've seen that trend come down. So I think the expectation or the thought process is it is coming, but we could communicate that via Skylert, which is email. We could also
so that would go out tonight if we did this?
We could, we could get it out tonight.
Okay.
And again, it's dependent on, the community facility use. We can do that a little bit broader. I think probably the more pertinent one will be when we're looking at our student body.
And include the fact that we have KN95, is that what we have available? Because my biggest concern is for families that have at-risk people at home or in the school, that they have protection. And I've heard that those masks, even if the other people don't have a mask on, are pretty protective of those
Yeah,
people.
they're a higher quality mask, so we have those with our nursing staff, so our students and staff can request those. We've also been having, and we go through about 5,000 a week right now, are the 3-ply surgical that people are seeing. So those have also been recommended, but the KN95, and that's what we've been waiting on too. We've secured those and we have more coming.
Yeah, just so those are available for those students.
We typically don't leave them by the door, right? So, I mean, we have some that are by the door, but if somebody's looking for that more layer of mask or that KN95, we have them go to the nurse. So, and I think as the shift happens, we'll figure out quickly who needs those and who would like to access those, and we can make sure they're accessible.
So Heidi, I'm pleased to see the 3 weeks of downward numbers come in. I'm pleased that the two of you had a weekend to yourselves for the most part.
Thank you.
Pleased. But also, I'm particularly pleased with that a lot of my initial concerns when we went into the masking requirement at the end of summer I don't want to say they melted away, but our country, locally, our school district, we've put into place measures, testing, access to other types of mitigation pieces like vaccination for those that want to. But a lot of my concerns have been alleviated in terms of what caused me to want to go into a masking situation. So I'm pleased with that. With that being said, my concern is, and Heidi, I did mention this to you earlier, is, I guess I shouldn't say a concern, but my wonder is, wouldn't we be able to, well, I would like to suggest that we include phase 4 into this as well, and we end masking we include 2, 3, and 4 together, and we end masking for those groups tomorrow or February 14th. And with the possibility, I'm willing to discuss phase 5 coming online or taking the masks off on February 2nd for phase 5. So my question to you is, if that's the case, or if we were to discuss that, could you share with me what would change or what we would be waiting for if we didn't?
No, and I think we talked about when we looked at this, and I mean, Director Spear can add more to it. We tried to follow, when you look at timeline of mitigation availability, so vaccinations being a major one that we talked about at the beginning of the fall for families who choose to have that, we really have divided our grade levels by that availability. So when you looked at really that 5, 6 grade, they were a little bit later to come on compared to the 7th through 12th graders could have access, but it's been accessible for quite a period of time. When you look at our data within our buildings, again, when I say 4 at the high school and 2 at Forest View, they're similar sized buildings. So I don't see that there would be an issue with that. I feel that we have the capability, our nursing staff has been very skilled and very willing to respond to parent questions. We're keeping track of the positive students. We're giving them guidance. They're connecting with healthcare professionals. I feel like we have the mitigation access that we need from additional masking if people would choose to do that. And again, like I said, the testing pieces, those rapid tests that we've been able to put in the hands of staff and students and families that need those. So.
Right, because even with the CDC and what they've come out with in terms of the effectiveness of the masks we might even have on right now compared to the one that you showed us, those type of things cause me to want to consider just doing what we promised our community, which is if we have those 3 weeks of downward slide, and if the data points in that direction as a clear path away from masks, I'd feel comfortable taking that next step. And then with the youngest among us, maybe giving another week as we look at the data for that. But moving forward, I feel 2 through 4 is something that I feel comfortable with.
My concern with that is that, and Ms. Jukish brought it up during her public comment, that somebody who wants to wear the KN95 has some protection. We're expecting a lot of our nursing staff tomorrow morning, or potentially parents and children marching into the nurse's office wanting KN95s. right away tomorrow morning at Forest View and Brainerd High School. It gives parents no time at all to secure those KN95s.
And that's my concern too. I think, we've let the community know how we're going to make these decisions, and there are families that are counting on that. And so to step in and say, we decided not to because we're seeing great numbers, which is fantastic, and I'm thrilled. And I know there's been a lot of great work that's been done in mitigating so that we can do that. But I worry that we're kind of pulling the carpet out from under some of these families that now have 8 hours to kind of respond to how do we mitigate against this if they're removing this layer of mitigation that we've been counting on. And so
Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like, 8 hours might not be enough for families to be able to think about that.
If you're talking to a high school student, they might be able to get out and get what they need tomorrow, or it's one thing. I just think it's a lot to do it at 2 schools tomorrow.
Well, I even think families that, have some sort of compromised situation at home, or they might have to figure out a different situation altogether if they're not comfortable with the K95 as the alternative. I think that's a lot for them to think about in a small amount of time.
So are you suggesting the 15th is too early for even the high school? Or are you suggesting just to do, because we could make it the 16th? I mean, if we want to give.
So they had a date at.
Yeah, because it is that's tomorrow, the 15th.
It is tomorrow. And we do have a natural transition, so we don't have students in session this Friday or Monday. So if you're looking for time to communicate and to build that, we can make sure that our nurses have that capacity. You could look at Tuesday, the 18th.
I'm personally more comfortable with that. I just think
I do my math correct.
to put the
Wednesday the 16th.
16th, or, again, we don't have students in session on Friday and Monday. So
Friday and Monday.
there's a lot of things you can do. So we're open to those recommendations to ensure there's appropriate communication.
I know this is a great relief to some people, but again, for some people, it is a concern, and I think we owe parents more than tonight to plan for it.
We have gotten some very strong emails from parents with family members that live in the household that are immune compromised, so I do think that's a good point. I know, I just wanted to tell you that Director Boyles, who wasn't able to attend tonight, did send me a text, that's why my phone beeped, that he fully supports this recommendation here.
The one that's presented?
Yeah, well, yeah, yep. Because he just sent it to me at 4:20, so I think it's this one.
Yep. And Director Hagelin also responded that he was in favor of all ages in the rollback. But I do think there's some communication pieces that can occur. Again, if you're looking for that natural time, like I said, we don't have students in session on Friday and on Monday. So you can look at that Tuesday, which is the
22nd.
Thank you. Thank you, Lane. That would allow ample time.
So
Get
if we
that
did
communication up.
all 2, 3, and 4 on the 22nd now, is that what I'm hearing?
I would be fine with phase 5, removing the masks on the 22nd as well. I definitely understand the idea that we want to make sure that those families are prepared. I understand that. I'll admit, I feel we're there at that point where we can remove the masks, but completely understand wanting to make sure that we allow families that might not be overly big on this decision to take some time and prepare themselves. So I'm fine with waiting until the 22nd. That makes sense.
You're
But
saying to do everyone on the 22nd? Is that what I hear you say?
that would be my vote.
Wide?
Mhm.
What does it look like, heaven forbid, but if the numbers start going back up, what do we do if masks come off in the entire district?
Yeah, and so that's why I go back to our trend data. So our goal was to keep things under 50. And so if you look at starting from September 1st, going through, we've consistently, that's why we looked at that transmission rate of trying to stay under 50. So we're well on track to do that. If we see a spike, what we've done is we've had to quarantine certain classrooms, or we've actually reset a couple programs. In our areas right now, they've been in our littles, and they've been in some of our high needs classrooms. So I think tracking our data, we can look at that. That's why we keep every kid registered and who's teaching they're with and watching that.
We still will have the requirement too from for a positive case, if they come back on day 6, they will need a mask. Mask from 6 through 10. So that will continue to be a requirement, and if they're not feeling they're able to do that, then we would have them stay out for the full 10 days to try and keep that.
So that's part of the quarantine guidelines. Right now, they're eligible to come back after 5, but that's because everybody's had a face covering on. Those who have a mask exemption or face covering exemption are some of our high need students. If they're gonna come back on that shortened quarantine, they have to wear a face
And
covering.
the athletics will still remain.
Same thing's been with athletics.
The 10 day with participation.
So again, that's isolating that positive case and that exposure, and I think because we have the nursing staff to do that, we have the capability to do that.
What about the quantity of KN95s that we have available?
So right now, we have 2,500 secured, and there's more coming.
And when will those get here?
So we're working with Sourcewell, so some of them have arrived already, so it's
Will
getting.
they be here by next Monday?
Well, the 2,500 are here already.
I'm
So-
just thinking about if we do, like Director Blackland suggested, if we did all groups.
Well, these are all just one size too.
Because they're just, you use them one day and then you toss them.
Yep.
So,
And the baby adult.
They're the one size.
Yeah, they're the one size, so I don't know that we have KN95s for the littles.
okay.
These are the one, yeah, they're kind of the one
I
size.
mean, a lot of times you can adjust them to fit, but
Are there K95s for littles?
there are, but we do not currently have those in the pipeline.
So I guess I would be okay staggering that smallest group one more week, just to make sure it goes smoothly in the high school and the middle school. Give us some time to react with the masks we need and give those parents with the littlest ones a little bit more time.
And Heidi, you talked about, and it gives me a lot of reassurance. I know there's other mitigation efforts in place, and I know you're looking at classrooms. I know the extensive tracking of data and monitoring of cases and where they're happening, and that you're taking action within those classrooms, within those populations, that it's not just an all or nothing, that we're approaching it in a really smart way. So I feel really good about that, for sure.
And again, like the decisions we made at the beginning of the year, factors continue to change, and we've continued to learn, and I think the biggest thing is access. So I feel very good about having another whole round of rapid testing available, and putting those in the hands of our students and our staff and our families. We have staff screening that continues, so that's been available all year. So a lot of it's been securing those supplies that may be needed. Give access to. So that's the other piece I want to just say with the rapid testing. So we have the next round, just making sure our families are aware of. So the BioNext Now, which were the tests that people got really familiar with, that was our first round. Our second round is called the BD Veritor test. So there's a smart device that's needed. So some of our nurses have held back those BioNext tests. So for a family who doesn't have access to a smart device, we do have limited supplies of the BioNext Now test. The other thing, we have had some of our staff who've been willing for families, they've actually been trying to read it with one of their smart devices for families who've struggled. I do want to warn families, if you have not updated your smart device, you're going to want to make sure you update your smart device because it runs on operating systems. Like I said, we're doing screening with our staff who choose to be screened every week on Tuesdays. And we still have free rapid testing available in our community at Central Lakes College on Wednesdays from 1 to 4.
And there is a request that you can make from the state of Minnesota too, to get 4 tests per household. If
So-
people haven't taken
And
advantage
those,
of that.
yep,
Those
and
have
we
come
sent that
through.
out in a communication, we can do that again. We've had families reporting that they've now been getting their 4 free tests from the federal level as well. So I think what we really need to know, just so I can further understand kind of the direction, because I think we've been all over the map. The good news is I think we're there, right? I think we need time that we need to communicate with our families, like you said, so families can prepare. As well as I want to make sure our nursing staff, who's been phenomenal. There are some, like you've said, students with high health concerns and needs. So we're going to make sure we need to prepare and have a plan for those needing additional care. So really, I'll go back to this slide and you can tell me what you would like those to be.
So I'm hearing phase 2 and phase 3 next Monday? Tuesday, next Tuesday, because there's no school. Well, it's, I don't know about phase 2. Could be, is there, because is there a lot going on this weekend? In community use of 5 to 8?
I guess I would advocate that we at least do phase 2 on the 15th or 16th.
Okay.
Just communicate it out so we can get it rolling this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I definitely understand the points that were made about allowing families to prepare for taking the masks off. And I would be fine with the 22nd. That's Tuesday, correct?
Yes.
Tuesday, I'd be fine with that. I'd feel comfortable with that.
Is that right? Phase 4.
And then phase 5, I would say we do that as well on the 22nd, but that's, I guess I'm curious.
We'll have a question of clarification for staff. We have many staff that will be working on Monday. Do we want to keep it Tuesday, or do you want to, I don't know if it matters, or if we want to just stick with the 22nd?
If you want to do the 21st, so staff don't have
For
to wear
staff,
them.
okay.
Well, to be clear too, how does this impact right now our 9 through 12 coaches are still masking? What impact does this have on them?
Says students though, so we should add.
Well, 9 through
staff
12 after
then.
school activities.
Right, but coaches are still required to mask, if I'm right, Jack? Yeah, so I just think we need to consider that as a part of this. If we're saying you don't have to mask on Monday when you're teaching, what about when you're coaching? Or when you're in the building, I mean, on Monday?
When is that part of the high school?
And I think to simplify, the more lines you can make it, the
Is it the
easier
high
the
school
communication and understanding.
I'm just wondering if it's the Minnesota High School League guidance about coaches masking during athletics right now?
Not required.
Okay.
A lot of it's dependent on facility.
So Janet, do you mean you're fine with the 21st for?
No, all I'm bringing up is the point that if we say, I heard us say that on the 21st, we wouldn't require staff to mask while they're prepping or doing workshop, then what about, we can't forget that 9-12 coaches, we are still requiring them to mask right now.
On
We can
Monday.
stick
On
with the
Monday.
22nd, I just know I'm going to ask that question.
It doesn't matter, I'm just bringing it up, because it's a part of the staff question.
And I think to Heidi's point, the more concise we can be, the more we can save the state for everything, the less confusion there might be.
Yeah, if we're going tomorrow with phase 2, is it phase 2 tomorrow for everyone, students and coaches? That would be the clearest way to go.
For after-school activities?
Yeah.
Well, if we're still requiring 9-12, and we took that away in November.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, everything from 2 up would include students and, so we'd be very clear, students and coaches or officials, whoever all it's including right now. Staff, yeah.
Okay. So phase 2 is tomorrow.
For students and coaches.
And phase 1 for.
To your point, I think we need to make it as simple as possible and not have little pockets that we have questions about whether or not.
That would be
it's
very helpful.
And then the 22nd for 3 and 4, just to keep consistent.
And then you want to wait one more week for the youngest learners.
So back to phase 2 really quick. There's a large basketball tournament coming up this weekend. So if we implemented phase 2 this week still, so then none of them would need to.
Right.
Correct, and what I've heard, just so I hear correctly, because I'll be the one responsible to type this all up and get the communications out, is that phase 2 we would implement starting tomorrow, the 15th, because it's after school, it's not during our contact day.
So that would be, since if that basketball tournament, just as an example, would be held at the high school, one of the grade schools, and a middle school, then none of them
It would be, we've done for after-school activities, it's based on the age group.
That's competing.
That's participating and
Not the
competing.
school,
And
okay.
actually, community facility use, that's non-school sponsored. So some of the basketball tournaments are not school sponsored. I'm not sure which one, we have so many activities going on.
Right,
But
I
some
don't
of them
think
are
they're
from an
technically
outside
school.
association and they're renting the facility, so.
Like they'd be renting.
So then this would go into effect tomorrow for that outside facility use.
And I think because it's after school, the communication is not so, I mean, we'll get it out there.
I just,
but
I think,
not
mask,
the
no
time
mask,
for
right.
parents isn't necessary.
I feel like during the pandemic, our families with significant health concerns, we've been working very closely with them. So again, I think there's been that communication and that partnership along. Giving them time to plan, I think, is very meaningful, so we can ensure there's extra steps we need to take now that we will remove one layer of mitigation. So, but after school activities, I think that's been there, because it's happening every place around us.
Okay, so what I hear people saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that effective tomorrow, phase 2 will go into effect because it's after school,
Including coaches.
including coaches.
And then coaches in phase 1, 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really 5-12 coaches.
Okay, then I have another one in here, and that is that all staff begin on the 21st, because they have to be here the 21st, students don't.
Well, we can just put the 21st for phase 3 and
Okay.
phase 4.
So phase 3 and phase 4 will be February 21st, to make it simple. And that's for staff and students. Okay, does that include elementary staff?
That's phase
Okay,
5.
so it's 5-8, okay? And then phase 5 would be February 28th for all elementary staff and students.
And
Is that
that is
correct?
based on, all of those are based on continuing decreases in our counts.
I think we can be,
Well, the last one would be,
yeah,
Well, I guess it would be the last.
unless we saw a big spike on Friday.
Yeah.
So Lane, when would phase 5, what do you have down?
Monday, February 28th, so 1 week later, and that would be all staff and students from early childhood, from early childhood through grade 4.
Because in your recommendation, was it the 22nd or was it the,
we actually had them staggered, 3 weeks, just going a week at a time.
oh, it was the
15,
20th?
22, 28.
So in Lane, in what you have written down, it would just stay the same as what the initial recommendation is?
No, if you go back.
Sorry.
So phase 2.
I mean, for phase 5 will be
Phase
the
2
20th.
tomorrow, phase 3 and 4, February 21st, phase 5, February 28th, 1 week later. Is
Yeah,
that,
and those are dependent on that continued downward trend in positive cases, which we
And
are
it's-
expecting.
based on the number of continuing decrease in
And then the guideline we used, as long as that's staying below that, because we anticipate we're gonna see up and down and up and down. It's not going away, so. But that's based on a year's worth of trend data.
And then we'll communicate to parents this new plan.
I'll start working on that this evening, so hopefully get it out early tomorrow.
And I know as we're seeing those fluctuations, just to reiterate that we're still reserving the right to say, okay, this classroom, we really need to mitigate here. We're gonna put face coverings back on.
I think there's a potential. I think when we're looking at that outbreak, when we remove a face covering, there's the option before you send a whole classroom out because of an outbreak to look at putting another mitigation strategy in place. So that is one thing we can reserve the right to do. And I think families need to be aware. We have adopted the shortened quarantine guidelines. It's been very easy for our families because they've come back and everybody has a face covering on. Now, when you roll back that face covering, if you're gonna come off a shortened quarantine, you're still gonna have a face covering. So we're gonna have kids who are gonna be walking around and staff who are walking around with a face covering if they choose to come back within that timeline. Otherwise, they're out for the 10 days. And that's the medical guidance we've been given and the guidance that continues, so.
And I'm sure there will still be people in face coverings because it's just strongly recommended now.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, and it would be good to get some information back, and I'm sure you'll hear it from the principals or the teachers on how that's being handled when there's people with and without face coverings, that both are respectful and.
And it's been happening around us. So the districts surrounding us who haven't had a face covering policy in place, some of them did not adopt the shortened quarantine because they didn't have a face covering. Some of them have adopted it, and that's been the guidance that they've given. If you'd like to come back, outside that 10 days, you have to have that face covering on. So it is going to be a new piece to navigate that we haven't had to navigate before. But it's not uncommon. I think we just haven't had to worry about it because we've had it in place.
I hate to belabor this, but my only concern right now as I think about this, if we wait until Monday with grades 5 through 12, what happens this week if some students or staff decide not to wear a face covering during this week?
Is it the same thing that happens today if they didn't wear it?
The policy's
The
still
rule
in
isn't
place.
changing until Tuesday, so, or Monday.
I'm fine, I just wanted to ask, because that could happen. Could be defiance.
Yeah, well, and I think I like to believe that people are generally sensitive, that they don't know what the people around them are facing at home, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't know that many people were expecting us to make this decision the way we are tonight even. I mean, if anything, I would think it's a relief for the bulk of people, or it's a concern for some too, so.
Yeah, I get, from the data we have, I think there's been, from the last board meeting in January, the hope was as you started to see that downward trend like we're seeing across the state and across the country, that we'd be making some movement. So communications we've had, there was hope of something. So I think there's anticipation for change.
Okay,
Thank
so,
you for this
Yeah.
great work.
so we need a motion to approve the plan as discussed.
I'll move to approve the COVID plan as discussed.
The revised one.
Revised, I'm sorry,
Yep.
yep,
No, that's
revised
good.
plan as discussed.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a first from Director Blackland, a second from Director Sjogren. Any further discussion? Just thank you for all your work.
You're welcome.
Good news for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I will. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next up, we have the Blueprint 181 update.
And tonight's is before each action item, they're just going to present the action item. That's going to be their presentation tonight. It's not a full presentation.
Okay.
So,
I like your vest.
Thank you. I like yours as well. Functional and fashion.
Right?
I promise I'm going to keep my part super short. So, on the Brainerd High School North Campus project, so A-Wing we approved a couple months ago with everything with the exception of the fire suppression package. Numerous meetings with our fire suppression contractor. We finally got down to an agreeable price of $231,607, and so that would be the final, contracted work to be finalized. If that makes sense. Any questions on that? All right, hearing none. Go on to the other.
Oh, no, we need a motion on that.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to ask for a motion right there when you said hearing none.
he's trying to be prompt.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Blacklands. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right, next item there, also for the A-Wing remodel project, which was PR 50. So part of our VE options was to remove the original base bid lockers from the scope of work and issue that direct through contract purchasing, utilizing the CPC Cooperative Purchasing Connection to Olympus lockers with proposal dated 1/14/2022 for $242,151. That would give 600 lockers to go into the A-Wing project. Any questions on that?
I will move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
First from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Spear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right. Next item there, the approving the contract to High Tech Construction through the Gordian proposal for the Brainerd Learning Center with a not to exceed value of $840,000. This is for the Brainerd Learning Center where we're doing the work for the SNS or the safe and secure entrances, the fax labs, updating the dining commons and the serving line to make that more efficient. And then as well as the multi-purpose room with the athletic flooring and the basketball hoops, and also replacing some very aged carpet in some classrooms and other areas as well. And that one, I know I went through that pretty quick. We've talked about it a bunch of times. Any questions on the Brainerd Learning Center?
Nope. I move to approve awarding the contract to High Tech Construction to the Guardian proposal with Sourcewell contracts for the Brainerd Learning Center and not to exceed $840,000.
I'll second. Okay, we have a first from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Sjogren. Any further discussion?
Well, I did read that without my cheaters, and I'm 50 years old. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Yes, by the way, happy birthday. You brought that up. It still might come.
You have your screen zoomed. Right?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, look at that. I can even read it over here.
I would prefer to abstain from voting.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I believe we still have a quorum because there's 4 of us present only, so 3 of us can be a quorum.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3 in approval and 1 abstention. Next up, we have the application to use the ESSER 3 funds.
This one here, we won't, Sarah would abstain anyway, but we'll just select people if they want them.
Good evening.
Oh.
So in your packet is a summary of all of our CARES funds, and unfortunately Damien has to sit through all of our other funds until we get to the ESSER 3. But just a heads up, this has grown quite a bit since the last update. You'll see the first 3 columns. Those are all new since my last update. Gear 2 is really childcare, so Fun and Friends, they applied for that grant, the coordinator did. The next column is the adult basic ed. The ABE coordinator applied for that grant. There's several dollars out there, you guys, that we're just learning more and more about. The next column is the emergency connectivity fund. That was through our E-rate. Sarah applied for that grant, got us some devices. The Minnesota COVID-19 testing, so that's our COVID testing program. We're using staffing and test kits on that column. The governor's discretionary ARP fund, we can use that for summer school, so we're just starting planning for that, and we'll look at ways that we can spend those funds. The gear fund we're going to use for summer school transportation. We used some last year with summer school transportation. We'll try to use the rest of that up this summer. ESSER 1, basically the only funds left is non-public, so that's why it's in white and there's not really anything that we need to do. Expanding summer programming, the blue, we actually earned that money based on enrollment last summer, and we're still learning more about it. Can I go back and recode some of the expenses we had last summer, or do we have to use it in planning this year's summer programming? So those are kind of some of the questions we're working through. The pandemic enrollment loss, that was set aside, trying to figure out what we can spend those funds on. Again, can we look at current expenses we can reallocate, or does it have to be new expenses? So that one is still a work in progress. ESSER 2, this is kind of the bucket we're really spending this year. So we've added staffing. This is where the longevity stipend was pulled from. Technology repairs, our marketing plan, all of that is being pulled from this ESSER 2 funding. And then also a lot of these you'll see we try to pull that administrative charge back. That just helps our general fund when we can charge the 5% for our time that we spend on these grants. The next bucket is the homeless and youth. Basically it's, can be applied for anyone who's identified as homeless. We haven't had a whole lot of that, so that's why the budget is so small there. If we did identify more, we could add more in that area. And then ESSER 3, that's the one that we're asking for tonight. You can see there's nothing projected to spend there this year just because we are using all of the ESSER 2 dollars. And then there is a 20% set aside that we have to use for learning loss. So when we're looking at the following year, 22-23, that's the next page, I did put in there the BLC and WESB construction. So we're asking for permission tonight to send in an application to MDE for those construction projects to use for ESSER dollars. It will help out our overall projects as far as some of the things that we've been looking at doing. And Damien can speak more to that. But you can see then, even with that request in there, we're gonna carry over about 3.5 million to the next year. So these funds go through September of 2024. And basically, I just took our current expenses and carried them forward, assuming we're gonna keep all the same staffing we have that we've added throughout all of those years. And it carries us all the way through, like I said, 2024. And the last 2024-25, it's about 3 months, and I apologize, there shouldn't be a negative there, but we'd only have about 3 months worth of expenses. And then the ESSER 3, the 20%, that's what we're gonna be planning when we're looking at this year's budget as well. What are some items we can identify to address the learning loss? Is there any questions on that? Do you want to speak to some of the items that are going to happen with the construction?
Well, one of the things that we've noticed is that our teams identify that there's some projects that actually qualify for the ESSER dollar, the ESSER $3, and it does give an opportunity to be able to actually address more needs within the district, because right now we know we're not addressing every need that we want to in the district. This will give us the ability to have some more flexibility to address more needs. So I think our team has worked closely with Marcy to put together the submittal, and we're just looking to move forward and actually send that submittal in to see if it will be approved.
Any questions?
This would be to submit the application, but then the actual expenditures or bids or whatever comes of it would come back to us.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. And a lot of this is for this building, which we had a small budget on.
Correct.
For all the needs that it has.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all this is allowing us to submit an application. It doesn't mean that we'll use it or use it all, but that is the available amount that we would have, that we could at least look at project to see if it would qualify. And so we're just, without permission to apply, we can't use any of these funds. And so all you're doing tonight is giving us permission to do the research, look into it, and apply and see if it qualifies. And then you can decide later if the project amount.
Yep. Okay. I'll move to approve to submit this application.
I'll second it.
A first from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Spear to approve the submission of the application for ESSER 3 funds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have up our marketing plan.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this one tonight as Anne Marie isn't here. But if you remember back, one of the goals that the board, yeah, thank you.
Excuse me, before you guys leave, I was actually in the Get You Zibby Center for Arts today, and I had noticed that the stage floor is uneven and there's some warping. And I just wanted to draw some attention to that. I know it's a relatively new structure, and I don't know who the subcontractor was for the center stage up front, but I was close enough to the stage that I was able to see that there was relatively noticeable warping in the stage.
Okay.
And that the
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you.
Scott,
We'll
will you check into that, Scott and Reed?
Read your.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
So, as I was saying, back with my last superintendent evaluation, one of the goals that the Board of Education had is that we would look at a branding and a marketing plan for the school district. And I think that we've done a really good job through the Blueprint 181 project to look at the branding, the blue, the white, the gray, the B and the beautiful vertical blue piece at every building to identify which buildings are our school district buildings, and the helmet that we're using to ensure safety and academics and all the pieces that the messages have to stand. But one of the things that we've talked a lot about is what are we doing as far as marketing our district? And I think this really, and we've been looking at it before, and I know that Corey Reynolds, before she left, she had held a couple meetings through our communications to look at the marketing piece for our school district, and also retention, not only of students, but also of staff, which the gentleman today talked a lot about, that people had said how important that is because of the staff shortage that is out there right now. What are we doing to attract candidates to our school district and to retain them when these candidates are hired into our school district? And so this past school year, we've been doing a significant amount of work at looking at what does that look like for our school district. And so I know that Chair Nelson and Director Boyles have been part of several meetings where we brought in different firms to talk about what does branding and marketing and retention look like in our school district. And tonight there's a proposal before you from a group called Stratelligent, which is out of the Brainerd-Baxter area, where they put together a proposal on helping us to look at what does it look like to market our district, what does it look like to analyze our enrollment and to hopefully bring back many of the children that we've lost through COVID-19. What does it look like to continue to attract the best and the brightest practitioners to be in front of our children every day? And when we were down at MSBA, Chair Nelson and I went to a session with SiteLogic that really did a beautiful job of defining what is the difference between branding, marketing, and retention. And so what we did last week is we had SiteLogic, representatives from SiteLogic, come up and meet with a whole team of people from our school district to address that and to talk about where do we go from here and what does that look like? What are the stories that we have in our awesome school district that we aren't telling? I think we do a really good job of some of the surface pieces and with some of our district websites and our social media and those types of things. But there's so many stories that we aren't telling about the great things that are happening in our school district. Look at the recognitions tonight. I went on and on talking about our kids and how they're being successful. A week and a half ago, we had the Career and Technical Education Workforce Development piece, where we had all kinds of school community members that came to our school and they talked about what we're doing to partner with our business community and our school district to build the workforce of the future and to expand on our career and technical education. And so I am really thrilled tonight to bring forward a proposal for taking a look at this and to really send out the message of the great things that we have in our school district. I see Jack in the back of the room, and I know that Brainerd Public Schools is just short, I think it's 3, right? 3 of the athletics that the Minnesota State High School League has to offer. And there's only 3 of them that we do not offer in our school. That is the huge array of opportunities. Same with activities. Those are the opportunities that we have in our district that we just need to tell people the wonderful opportunities we provide our children, the wonderful academics. We've got some really fun announcements in the very near future regarding our academics in our school. We've got stories to tell, and we're excited about this marketing plan. So tonight what I am bringing forward is asking the board to support, and this would be pending that we have our legal counsel look through the narrative in it and everything, that's presented before you and to get John Edison's approval on it and to make any changes that the chair, myself, or Anne Marie together might see. And we'd like to begin this marketing plan through the company called Stratelligent. And before you is their proposal that they have, also knowing that we will expend some additional dollars to help do some of the advertising publicly within our community. I do want you to know that because of the decreased enrollment that we are experiencing as a result of COVID, we plan to use some of the CARES dollars that Marcy was talking about to help us to get this process started. And so I would strongly recommend tonight that the Board of Education approve for us to move forward with Stratelligent, given we have approval of the contract with our legal counsel, and to start that marketing campaign and that message sending of the wonderful activities and offerings that we have at Brainerd Public Schools.
And maybe actually make it with any edits needed from legal, because
sure,
I think there might be a few edits in here that need to happen. So as far as confidentiality and some liability stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And it says confidential in there right now, and that's because it was their proposal, but we're recommending that we move forward with the proposal.
And I think it's,
yeah, we'll take that out.
Yeah, it's a great thing to be doing. I just, when Bob was here talking about the survey, the community survey, and one of the concerns was class size, and I know how much work we've done on that, you know, lowering class size, and the community doesn't know that. So that's another thing that we just need to share that information.
We have some of the smallest class sizes in the whole region, and we just don't send that message. And the message that we're this large school appears that we have large class size when we have very small class sizes compared to other districts. Something to be proud of, right? So I would recommend we move forward with this.
So do I have a motion to approve the agreement with any edits needed from our legal team?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. First from Director Blacklance, second from Director Spear. Any further discussion?
I would just say, I think this is a really important thing for districts. I know a lot of districts do this, and it's smart because it enhances the communication with the public more than anything, to share those stories that are all our stories, right? So I think it's really smart.
I agree. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Same sign, motion carries. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's exciting. Okay, next up we have the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee concurrence vote. And I think who is here? Let's see, Govinda, Susan.
We have actually, the names are wrong on there.
Okay, Amanda and, well, Ashley isn't here though, I don't think. Is she?
She's
here.
here.
Oh, she's way back there, okay.
She's not presenting,
We
right?
have 3 other parents that are.
Okay.
Those are not come up, and maybe we can
We'll have everybody introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Pull the chairs around.
Yeah, pull a couple chairs.
Okay.
I gave you the rubric, one of the copies I gave you that they were using.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just so you know.
I'll just pull this other chair.
Oh, okay. And then you'll. If you want to sit. Okay. We've been sitting a long time, so we're gonna stand for a little bit if it's okay. Plus, we have some movement that we're gonna be doing around the room a little bit, not too much, but nothing to scare anybody. Hopefully. Make sure your shoes are tied. No. Came here to exercise. Okay.
But do you want to introduce yourselves all first, since there's some new people?
Yeah.
Bonjour, my name is Susan Bolio. I'm a parent and on the American Indian Parent Committee.
Bonjour, I'm Thomas Adornetto. I'm also a parent of a student in kindergarten.
Bonjour, I am also a parent. I'm Govinda Boudreau.
I'm Catherine Blacklands. I'm also a parent.
Bonjour, I'm Leanne Wojtaszek. I'm also a parent.
So we understand, and I hope that you'll hold this during our presentation for a while. We understand that when we start off in this way of offering first the ASEMA that elevates our conversation, and that we ask for this in a good way to be heard in partnership and support to positive growth in the district. This is the way that we have begun every year for the past 4 years. In that time, this request has extended beyond this boardroom, calling in families to join in this work, families that have enrolled their children because of the positive dialogue, volunteers and state leaders that have provided immense support to the district and the Indigenous students. In this, we would like to acknowledge Dr. Sandra Potoff as one of the people that has been drawn through this process. We are grateful for the help with the data and building systems to access information to provide context to the experience of students. She also provided tutoring support for our students. We see you and are humbled by the kindness of the time and wisdom you have given to the district and most importantly, our children. We would also like to acknowledge the support of extending Native American education staff positions and hours. The most important resource that we can have in Indigenous education programs are the dynamic resources of individuals that serve as liaisons and create spaces for hope for a responsive and reflective environment. We would like to honor Superintendent Larson's tenure with the district. Before Superintendent Larson came to the district, much of the statutory requirements for serving and educating Indigenous students were suppressed. The American Indian Parent Advisory Committee did not exist in the state that it does now. Individual parents were asked in the absence of other Indigenous family voices to sign concurrence for the district. The limited request that as families that we had to have staffing for Indigenous education and provide training for the teachers and staff were denied. Lane, you cleared that path and supported our voice and autonomy. You helped establish, lead, and reinforce some of the accountability between the district and Indigenous students and families and communities. And so 3 years ago, we arrived in this boardroom and we spoke about the work was like a quilt that needed to be constructed in partnership. We gave pieces of cloth to remind each of you about the craft work that was needed to create the quilt in a good way. We know that there's still a lot of work to be done, however. We honor your commitment and leadership to start the creation of this partnership. Please accept this fully completed gift of a quilt from the APAC. Please know that we honor how you have walked with us on this journey. To get out of the Hollywood bag. The whole thing? So we'll bring it over. All of us. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful. This way. Thank you.
We have 6 more gifts and acknowledgements to make. These pieces of cloth are for the continued construction of this healing quilt in partnership in the district. Miigwech, attendance of district staff and school board meetings at APAC meetings. Miigwech disaggregation of data and awareness and attention brought to the gaps throughout the district. Miigwech continued work on curriculum development to provide more areas of Indigenous inclusion in our classrooms, libraries, and book rooms. Miigwech school board members and administrators completion of the MDE self-assessment rubric. Miigwech holding space for APAC voices in the hire process for our new superintendent. And Miigwech continued efforts to grow and learn in the areas of equity and inclusion in education.
We intentionally tried to walk into this room keeping our feet well grounded in our responsibilities walking this earth. These responsibilities include the teachings of the grandfathers: honesty, love, courage, humor, wisdom, humility, and respect. When we come, we have heard that some view this as contentious or take our honesty and truth as individual criticism. We always try to walk with courage and humility to respect and love each other in this process. We are only sitting opposite you because that's the way the system is designed, not because it's opposition in our hearts or our minds. The APAC exists out of the leadership that came before us to establish the statutory requirements that have collaboration and advisement from caregivers of Indigenous students in the district. The critical nature of the relationship is reciprocal. Each year, the APAC community is asked to vote on whether the district is following all of the statutory requirements and meeting the needs of Indigenous students. Though our responsibility is to try to live by these 7 teachings, we are compelled to respond with honesty and truth to this vote. Over the last several years, we have provided the rubric that you guys each have that we are using to evaluate the district. You have all the information and resources to guide you. You do not have to wait for an official vote to determine where the district lies in this work. What will you do to carry the weight to the positive change that is needed? We know that there are individual efforts and individual apathy. This is fundamentally about systems change that generates from the roots and supported from the very top leaves of the leadership. Beyond individuals, how is this work being upheld for those that want to support children, or how is it being corrected in those that want to perpetuate inequalities of the systems, knowingly or unknowingly? We have voted non-concurrence unanimously as a committee and have a series of recommendations that we see that are interrelated, just like the parts that make up a quilt.
So our first recommendation is around welcoming environments, and we'd like to call your attention to the rubric 4B, numbers 20 and 22 under culture. We're not going to be reading all of the pieces in the rubric, but just some of the pieces that will help you understand our recommendations. So number 20 says tribal leaders, elders, community representatives, and parents are on campus. So this full implementation looks like my district, school, or tribe offers planned events, classes, and services, and has worked to create a welcoming environment for informal visits and American Indian community representatives, so like tribal leaders, elders, and or parents, and they regularly visit the campuses. So last year, one of our recommendations that was interrelated to this is 3B under educator effectiveness, communication, collaboration, and professional development. So 12 and 13. So 12 has collaboration with tribes and American Indian community agencies to identify policies, practices, impacting American Indian students' performance and attendance. So you can see under full implementation, on the far left is the 4. My district, school, or tribe regularly collaborates with local American Indian tribes and or American Indian community agencies in a meaningful and timely manner to identify tribal policies or cultural practices that affect American Indian student school performance, especially attendance. And then 13 is staff awareness of policies or practices that impact American Indian student performance and attendance. full implementation looks like. In my district, school, or tribe, nearly all staff are aware of tribal policies or cultural practices that affect American Indian student school performance, especially attendance, through systematic communication efforts, including new teacher onboarding processes. So in order to achieve this welcoming environment for informal visits that we recommend this year, we need to accomplish last year's recommendation of rewriting policies about the use of traditional medicines, such as RSAMA, in the schools. There has been a history of that out loud access to traditional practices and medicines, and so it's essential that in this healing and responsive process that there's access and understanding about this. Let's see. So, it's okay. So the recommendations stand as follow for this one. Regular all-staff training on working with American Indian students and understanding American Indian culture. We've had this on our recommendations for years, and we believe it to be interconnected with creating a welcoming environment. One and done trainings aren't enough. So we need to define regular in a meaningful way. And there's a lack of knowledge and implementation in the district, so regular trainings have to be defined as more often with measures of success included. The next is policies are collaboratively explored and updated with APAC to impact American Indian student performance and attendance. And elders, community, culture, language, and knowledge keepers' families are invited and welcomed in the schools, both formally and informally.
Representation. Section 3A, educator effectiveness, recruitment and retention. American Indian administration and staff representation. The full implementation, it would read something like this. My district, school, or tribe collects and analyzes data on proportion of staff that are members of tribes of American Indian students in the district or school. My district or school employs American Indian staff at a rate proportionate to the American Indian student population, and this is true across 3 roles: administrators, teachers, and paraprofessionals, and follows legislation to pay them at the same rate as their peers. Number 9, American Indian teacher recruitment, Full implementation would mean my district, school, or tribe actively recruits teacher applicants who are American Indian from the time it is reasonably expected that a position will become available with ongoing multi-year efforts, including these main initiatives. Number 1, community outreach through listservs, American Indian community organizations, tribal employment offices. Number 2, collaborating with local colleges to encourage American Indian enrollment in teaching programs. And finally, number 3, partnering with funding agencies that provide scholarships to American Indian pre-service teachers. Relevant questions and recommendations. So this is what we are recommending. Accurate data on proportions of American Indian students with the ISD 181 school district. Another recommendation would be accurate data on proportions of American Indian staff and in which roles within the ISD 181 school district. Another recommendation are the proportions where they should be. If not, what is the plan to begin working towards aligning these? And another recommendation is showing actual, current, and potential instead of an actual. Recruitment and retention team for American Indian teacher applicants that begins with reviewing the current practices and evaluating their effectiveness.
Okay, I am going to be addressing the third one, which is information for change. This refers to rubric 6. The 6 database decision-making rubrics. Look at 28 through 33 for reference. I'm not going to read all of those, but you can see them on there. They relate to some of the data. And so some of the things that we're still looking to see is to continue to disaggregate data and have mechanisms to make accurate analysis. We want to look at some risk ratios of all sections of data necessary. Data should be directly tied to decision-making about policy and practice. The data needs to have regular, at least yearly reviews and used to affect positive change, where we're not just looking at data, but we're actually doing something with it too. Not that you're not, I'm just saying that's what we need to be doing annually, right? There are 2 areas that still haven't been addressed: Native student satisfaction survey results and dropout rates. Discipline rates for suspension and expulsion have not been analyzed, only raw numbers were pulled. And all information should directly be tied to making positive change. Finally, when considering dropout rates, this should not be limited to actual formal dropouts. The district should explore rates of Native students leaving the district and the reasons surrounding their transfer from the district. And then these recommendations tie together an interrelationship to a greater picture of meeting the needs of not only Indigenous students, but all students. Through the pieces of creating a welcoming environment, having representation, and using information for positive change, we believe that places us on a good path. There are 13 individual but interconnected rubrics that we recommend being worked on this year. We would like to work side by side with you in this work of dismantling systems that do not serve equitably and building systems that advance all of the children. Thank you all for listening.
We have a graphic, but I'm not sure how to pull it up. But
there was a quilt graphic. Did that make it to you?
Just sure. That quilt is beautiful. It's gorgeous. So whoever made it or created it, thank you.
And while she's doing that, you don't see me speechless very often, and I am speechless today because I am deeply touched to have gotten to know all of you and to work with you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this. As most of you know, I'm a FACS teacher, a family and consumer science teacher, and one of the things that I love to do is quilt. And I know how much work it is. I know how time-consuming it is to make a quilt of this beauty. I know the heart and soul that goes into every piece. And as I've been thinking about it, it reminds me a lot of the work that we've been doing together with the work with the APAC committee, equity, and so on. And we're not perfect. We've got work to do. It takes time, but we'll continue to work together to address that. But I cannot even thank you enough for how beautiful this is. And I will cherish it forever. Thank you.
we're coming around just to collect the SEMA so that we'll put it out for you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for a little while, because I'm looking. So did one of you make this?
So my auntie, Deb.
Your aunt?
Yeah.
Really? It's just gorgeous.
She's an amazing quilt maker. Give a shout out.
Is she the quilter too? Does she do the quilting as well?
Yes.
Does she have like a long arm or does
Yes.
she? See, I know a lot about it.
See, and you're worried about what you're gonna do when you retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
We kind of put a graphic together just with the squares that all of you have that remain with us, right? And the work that needs to be done on the quilt that we will that we will make going forward. So we're excited to work with all of you.
Thank you so much.
I have one question. You had the recommendations, but I don't see that we have those.
They are, I think they
They're
were, or maybe
online.
not. Maybe they weren't emailed, but.
They're on the website. They're on your agenda.
Oh,
I see it.
okay.
And so we will have 60 days to respond, and so it'll be important that board members and our team all gets together in response to the concerns that they have brought forward tonight. And then we will have another public discussion at a board meeting before it's submitted, so, good. Thank you so much.
But we do need to.
Yep. And
Acknowledge this.
I should put that too, that by making a motion and a second tonight, what it says is that you acknowledge it and you have time now that you can read through it and we'll work through a response to each of the concerns that have been brought forward. But the vote tonight is really acknowledging it, and it's saying that we have 60 days to respond.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, great. We have a first from Director Spear, a second from Director Sjogren of the acknowledgement, and any further discussion?
One thing I'd like to add is, thank you very much for your time and effort. I've had the opportunity to see up close and personal the time and effort this group put together and the thought to bring forth what they did. And I'm so pleased as a parent of an indigenous children that we have people like yourselves advocating for them. And thank you so much for all that and all your efforts.
It was a lovely presentation. It really was.
Very well done.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote.
Kevin Boyles, Tom Hagan, Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Sjogren,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Charles Black Lance,
Yes.
all present in favor.
Thank you. So that is passed, and we'll work on the response. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Next up, we have ratification of the educational interpreters contract.
Hello again.
Hello.
You should have all received a copy of the cleaned up contract. We have met with the interpreters unit and have come to agreement on a 3-year contract. This includes a market increase to remain competitive with comparable districts in our area, and also opening up all the health insurance plans as we're moving through with all of our employee groups to ensure that employees have choice when looking at their medical needs. There was a change of structure for personal time accrual, and then basically the other changes were just kind of cleaning up some of the language, making sure it was consistent with our practices. Any questions?
Thanks for all your work on this.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do have a cleaned up copy that I'll hand off to you.
Okay. And do we need a roll call vote on this? It doesn't say that. No, we don't. Okay.
I'd make a motion that we ratify this educational interpreter contract.
Second?
First from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Spear for ratification of the educational interpreters contract. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have approve moving the April 11th regular school board meeting from 6 p.m. to a special school board meeting at 12 p.m. Remember why this was?
Because the next 3 days you'll be
that's right.
doing superintendent interviews from
Thank
morning
you.
to night. So thought to have this at noon and then do the evening things.
So moved.
Second?
First from Director Bellacklance, second from Director Spear. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And the next one, I'll turn over to Superintendent Larson to discuss.
Yes, we got information from Sourcewell that this year's representative assembly is being held on April 20th at 5 p.m. at Madden's. And they are looking for each school district to select 1 or 2 board members that they would like to have serve as representatives at the representative assembly that evening. And so I'm bringing this forward tonight to see if there are any board members that would be interested in serving on this. This isn't something we have to vote on. It's just selecting 1 or 2 people that might serve at the representative assembly on behalf of the Brainerd School District and to provide information to Sourcewell as they set goals and objectives moving forward. And so I think that this would be something really awesome to have at least 1 representative, but preferably 2.
And 2 of us are not here tonight, so
Correct.
if we could invite them later too.
You could, yep.
But is there anyone? Director Black?
I would.
Okay.
Charles, well, awesome.
It's a meeting that evening?
Yeah,
Just
at 5 o'clock, yeah.
And it's, do we know anything more about it, the timing?
It's the Students of Character banquet.
Oh, sure.
Along with the annual
Say
meeting.
that again?
Oh,
The
sure.
Students of Character banquet in conjunction with the
Oh,
annual
that's
meeting.
in conjunction with it? Oh,
At the
nice.
same time.
Sure. I'd be happy to attend. I've been to that
Okay,
meeting before. It's a nice evening to recognize students across the region.
beautiful. Good, thank you. All right,
Great.
good,
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
nice.
Okay, next up we have informational items. First is the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation report. From
That
Director
would be
Schroeder.
me. So we had a meeting this afternoon of the Brainerd Public School Foundation Board, and the main bulk of the content was to review the big event that took place last weekend. Really nice event out at the woods, great attendance, and of course, as fundraisers go, monies are still rolling in and there's still some reconciling going on, but the early news is that we were able to raise at least $75,000 that evening for our students. That'll of course go back into the 4 A's for our students, and so we thank our public school foundation who puts that whole thing together. There's a committee, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we thank everyone who attended and sponsored and just makes that event successful because it's all for our students. And then I do believe students still have a couple of weeks here to be applying for scholarships, so keep putting the word out there that if you have a senior in your household, make sure they're applying for those scholarships. It's a simple process where you fill out 1 application and it will match you automatically with the opportunities that you are eligible for. So I encourage students to apply for scholarships.
Thank you. And Equity Advisory Task Force update.
Okay, Jen and I were able to both take, well, for sure I was. Anyway, take part in the Equity Task Force meeting, and this was last week. And what we talked about was the first bucket, which is our first effort for that group, and I referenced this last meeting, which is the student safety and engagement. And in that vein, we covered the student input regarding perspectives on their safety at the high school. So the effort was a good one, and it's great to hear that student perspective, but also it was shared that this feedback will be sought after on a larger scale for a larger number of students as we move forward. And then also, it was discussed at the meeting, the resources needed towards the successful completion or implementation of our first bucket. And then finally, we also had an important dialogue, conversation about carrying out the community dialogue, which was to take place on February 10th. And as many of you know, the snowstorm, we had to postpone that, and that'll be postponed to February 24th. And but at our last meeting, we talked about certain things such as how we're going to carry out the process of that day, what we're going to, all the way down to some of the specifics of how we'll want to handle the individuals in terms of making sure that they all have a voice and that they are all heard. So, and that this is a valuable time for them, if they're gonna come be a part of this community dialogue. So it's unfortunate that it got postponed. Mother Nature got us on that one. But on February 24th, please mark your calendars for that.
Thank you. Any questions for either Charles or Jenna on those last two reports? Okay, Business Services Report with Marcy Lord.
This will be a little bit brief. It's the enrollment update. Just wanted to note we're down 17 from last month and then 71 from the beginning of the year. And when I did a comparison of the last 3 years, the average was 73 from that. So we're kind of on target for beginning of the year, but the 3-year average was 6 for the previous month. So we are trending a little bit higher, but in a total we're not. So, and then the second page was at the last board meeting, Tom had asked about, why are kids leaving? So this summary was put together by our MARS coordinator, and it just shows grades kindergarten through 12, where did they go? Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you the why, but it does say where. So the highest, 39 was within Minnesota. So they're leaving us, but they're moving within Minnesota. Number 2 was 34 going to Cross Lake Charter. Number 3 was 24 of them are dropping. So after 15 days, we unenroll them. And you'll see that's mainly in 9 through 12. Number 4 was 18 of them are they left the state. And then number 5 was 9 of them went to Minnesota Connections. And there's other numbers beyond there, but those were the top 5 in there. So just wanted to share that information with you guys. And if you wanted other information, this was kind of the best data we had based on that request.
Could you email those numbers to us, especially since 2 of us aren't here?
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.
That'll be important when we do our marketing work too. So where are our children going and what are some of the reasons? And so that'll definitely be a conversation that we need to have.
I understand if we're not asking now, can we ask why? And we can't require people to answer, I understand.
So we
but can
are,
give them
we
hope
are
and
asking.
they just aren't filling it in.
Yep, it's on the form. It's just whether or not they fill it in.
Shoot.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up is the Superintendent's Report.
Right. Although I know this meeting has gotten really long tonight, as I reflect over the course of the last almost 3 hours, I really believe that some wonderful things have happened at this board meeting tonight. When we talk about that we're all here on behalf of our children, it just makes me think of our district mission statement and how in partnership with our community, we're going to make sure that all of our students have the resources and the instructional practices and what they need to be successful, contributing citizens in a global society. And I just think that, you can tell by the decisions that the board has made tonight in so many of these action items that it's all about providing opportunities for all of our kids and what that looks like. And so I'm just so proud of the work that everyone is doing together, putting children at the forefront of our decision making. And like I said earlier, it's not perfect, but we keep plugging away, and we're doing our best to provide what our children need, what our families need, and so on. And so I thank the board for some really courageous conversation tonight and some courageous decision making as well. And so thank you for that. I also want to take a moment to wish Charles a happy 50th birthday. What a way to spend his 50th birthday, right, at a board meeting. And I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day, and what a way to spend your Valentine's Day, right, at a 3-hour meeting. Anyway, it's kind of fun to be together. I just have a few things that I'd like to add from what we've talked about. Just reminding everyone that this weekend is a long weekend for our children. We have a non-instructional workday for staff on Friday, the 18th, and President's Day, there are no students on Monday. And so when we talked a little bit ago about that there's no school on Friday and Monday, it's because of the long weekend that it is in our calendar. Again, I want to thank the Board of Education members for your dedicated service on behalf of our children to meet the responsibilities that we have in our mission. And that I ask our community to thank these board members during School Board Appreciation Week, February 21st through the 25th, for the service that you provide. And so this has been a challenging couple of years, and so I thank you very much for that. Charles, you mentioned that the equity dialogue with our community has been postponed until the 24th, and that will be held at 6 p.m. in room 200 again. If it ends up too small, we'll figure out a space that will have that dialogue. And so we look forward to having a beautiful turnout of people. And I'm sorry it's stormed again, so I had to make that call the other day because we were looking forward to that. Also, on March 3rd is the legendary Women of Brainerd Public Schools induction ceremony at the Gitchezeba at 4:30. And we know that we've had some really honorable women too that have graduated from Brainerd Public Schools and have made a significant difference. And so if you're available at that time, please come and celebrate the accomplishments of our alumni. And last thing that I'm going to say at this time, just as a little reminder, because we've done a lot of talking about dates and stuff. My calendar dates are just really high here, but we will be having spring break, March 14th through the 18th. That was added back into our calendar this year, and so hopefully that during that time we're celebrating being done with COVID, because that's the same time in 2020 that it came about and changed all of our lives forever, and hopefully it'll be different during that time. So anyway, that's all I have tonight. Just thank you to everyone and happy birthday to Charles.
We have cupcakes over there. Everybody in the room is welcome.
I saw him over there and I thought, I wonder what they're for. Great.
Cupcakes.
Good, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. The future meetings are listed there. Most of them we've talked about or approved. And I just wanted to say one other thing is that we all went on a tour of the Aquatic Center and the Lincoln Educational Center South Campus this afternoon. And that pool is going to be beautiful. And so is the new Lincoln Educational Center that serves some of our most at-risk and needy students. So it was fun to see those progressing.
Wasn't it though?
Yes.
It was just beautiful.
Really nice. So everyone has a list of all the dates. Get them on your calendar. And let's see. We need a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
First from Director Sharp
That
and a
was
second
fast.
from Director Sweeter. I wonder why. We have cupcakes to eat. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here.